Hey guys, it's Kim, aka Spartan Stitcher on Instagram, back again with another weekly cross-stitching update. I worked on 4 different pieces this week, and today is the 12th of April, 2021. This is video number 116, and it's currently snowing outside. The 12th of April in North Dakota, and my shirt should say winter is back, or winter is coming back. Yeah, so it rained yesterday, but it's snowing today. It'll snow tomorrow. We might get a little more snow later on in the week. Winter is back. And 2 weeks from today, we are on the schedule in base housing here to have all our windows replaced. So I'm really hoping that the weather warms back up, because last week we were around 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 18 degrees Celsius, so it was really nice outside. And now we're down to 18 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like -7 degrees Celsius. So it's pretty cold outside right now, especially for the middle of April. So, yeah. Let's talk about cross stitch before I get to the rest of the stuff. 4 pieces this week. First one I worked on was Card Sharp by Omar Ryan. I'm using this for the Full Coverage Fanatics Bookshelf Challenge. This month it is children's books is the genre. And this one I believe I used for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I completed that since kids' books are shorter. 3,610 stitches to get this book done. And I also, let me tighten this up, also finished the page. So page 2 is now done. So I had most of the dark part done, and I had the curtain to do, and all this, the stonework and the stucco of the, I guess it's not stucco, it'll be brickwork up there. So it'll be lighter bricks going on an angle. So finished page 2. Of course I have lots of threads feathered into page 3, and this is my first, I can't say my first full coverage goal because that was Oh Baby. This is my second full coverage goal of the year met, because I only wanted to get 1 page finish for the year. So, yeah, we'll see how many other goals I get before I have a relook at my goals. Nikki from Nikki Craft, she suggested, in July, which I've done before, I've reevaluated my goals to see which ones I want to push out, which ones I want to push for more. So we'll see how much I can get done between now and July, and then we'll push out those goals that I've already met, dependent on how many goals I still have to meet. So that was 3,610 stitches on Card Sharp. Next, I picked up Half-Blood Prince by Tilton Crafts. This piece only has 35 colors, and I had the row finish last year, so, or not last year, earlier this year I finished this page. So I was starting on the first page of the second row, which had a few stars, mostly background, and a little bit of Tom Riddle's head and his hand down here. So I'm using this one for the Secret Garden, I believe, for the bookshelf challenge. And I haven't done it all yet because the Secret Garden is the biggest book out of the 3. I've done about a little over half of the stitches. I have to do like 6,600 and some 10 stitches. And so I've done 3,410 stitches in those 3 days. Got a good start on it. And the rest of this page is only like 3 or 4 colors. So it'll be pretty quick to fill in, and that's what I'm going to work on the first part of this week, is working the rest on this. I should get the page finish to finish that book. So 25 count. Card Sharp is on 28 count, easy count, and this is 25. Goes pretty quick with that limited color palette. So that is Half-Blood Prince. And then this past weekend, decided to work on something a little bit different since I had 2 days to fill. And I pulled out my Santa sampler, which you can get on the Cooler Designs website as a PDF. I always link that down below. But mine is in the 555 Christmas cross-stitch designs by Donna Cooler. And that's what it looks like. And last year I had 4 Santas done. So I had this center Santa and then these 3 down below. So I worked on it this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and I put in 1,400 stitches. That includes back stitching counted as half a stitch. It's got some fractionals in it too. So there we go. This is 28 count gingerbread by Picture This Plus. So there's the entire piece. And I'll fold them up and get closer. So I did the candy cane and everything coming off of it. These 2 hearts. I did the 2 bells and the ribbon, this heart, and all of this Santa. All that Santa has left here is his list that he's writing on, and then all his backstitch. And that Santa would be done. So that's 2 days towards the Santa sampler. My goal on this piece for the year was 5 days. So again, we'll see what I accomplish by July and see if that needs to be pushed out or not. So that is 2 days on the Santa sampler. And then I have my daily piece to show you. A Summer Ball by Sandy Littlejohns of Cross Stitch Arts. Again, this is stitched in Anchor. And my goal was 100 stitches a day, and I exceeded that. I've got like 820 some for the week, I think, because I've already stitched today. So I have 8 days worth because I hadn't stitched on it last week's video. So let me move this needle minder. All right, so I finished all the green background. I finished all of the frame on this guy and this little candlestick holder here. And then I finished all that, and then I took those yellows and I finished the yellow in her dress, and then I did all this black. My goal was to get all the black done. Of course, just like this gentleman and this one, they'll have gray to fill in parts of their jackets too. So that was my 800 stitches. I'll continue to fill the black and then do the gray, the dark gray to finish their jackets. And then I'll probably start on, this is the red coat, the British officer. So I'll do his red coat and her light blue dress. So that'll be next before I start doing their white breeches and white gloves of the ladies, and then we'll do heads and faces last, just like in the last page. So that's the plan for that one. We'll see where about 800 more stitches brings me next week. So those are what I worked on. Plans for the week. Of course, keep going on a summer ball. Finish up the 33,000 or so 10 stitches on Happily Prints to get that page finished. Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Full Coverage Fanatics is Confetti Conquistadors. That's our weekend non-counting event. So for that, I will be pulling Supersized Color Expansion Museum Shelf back out and working on the middle, this page with the stairs on that one for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then if I work on anything else, it's dependent on how fast I get that page finished on Haplib Prints. So I'll get that, work on Haplib Prints, get that page done. If I have time before Friday comes, I'll work on a little something. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday will be Museum Shelf. Plus my daily on a summer ball. So that's my plan for the week. And that is all my stitching content. So next is life and Air Force stuff. So if you're not interested in that, thank you for joining me. Hope you have a wonderful week. Hopefully it's not snowing where you're at. And I'll see you next week. So, life updates. After that last week of March into the first few days of April, winter busing was over for my kids here. Even though the school is like less than half a mile away on base, only takes us about 5 to 8 minutes to walk there. The base has a contract for winter busing to pick up the kids, because when it's negative 50, you don't want the kids outside that long. I don't want to be outside that long. So winter busing runs November through March. So now parents are responsible to getting their kids to school, whether it's walking, biking, driving, what have you. We normally walk or bike. Of course, today my girls didn't want to. They wanted to be driven and dropped off because they're done with the snow right now. They want the nice weather. What that also means, this week was supposed to be their first riding lesson. I told you that I found a place that had a horse for me to work with. And also the barn owner was supposed to start, she was starting riding lessons. But now there's snow on the ground. And then it's going to melt, and then there's going to be mud on the ground, which is not conducive to good conditions for beginner riding lessons. So she's already canceled lessons for the week, so my girls are going to be quite disappointed. And also that means I won't be working with Maddie this week while the temperatures and conditions are poor as well. But things have been going well with her. We've kind of been figuring each other out, feeling each other out, figuring out what methods work best for both of us that we both understand and can improve upon. But she is making progress. We're starting to understand each other, and she's being desensitized to a lot of things. I can now take, if any of my horse people know Clinton Anderson, I have a stick and a string. So it's like a 4 foot long, like fiberglass stick with, woven cord on the end that's about 5 feet long, and I can hold her lead rope stretched out in front of her and go like this in a figure 8, slapping the ground, so making the whistling sound through the air and slapping the ground, and she just stands there, be like, what? So she's getting there. She's getting desensitized and not as trigger happy, if you will, to just fly off the handle for everything. She does have some issues bending right. She has an old scar on her left knee, and she's perfectly sound, no lame steps when you lunge her. So I don't know if it's just she favored the left side so long and she has more balance and muscle that direction. But when you're lunging her to the right, she does not want to pick up the right lead at the canter, and she doesn't want to bend right. So I'm going to be working on improving her flexibility and balance that way. She has tripped and taken some bad steps going to the right. So we need to work up those muscles. Again, I don't want to get on her if she's not physically ready. So I'm going to be working with her and using some equipment to help her bend and build up that muscle. Let's see. Hopper is currently in the middle of spring hormones, which is one reason why you haven't seen him. He's getting to be a little bit of a handful. He's normally a really good bird. I can open the door and he'll stay on his cage and not get into any trouble for hours. I only close his cage door and keep him in his cage when we're not home or when it's, past his bedtime. Well, now he's getting into all kinds of things, not quite climbing off his cage, but trying to get into the paper and dirty stuff at the bottom of his cage. And the smallest thing can either trigger him to be super loud and yelling, or it can trigger him, like me opening my computer desk is in the same room as his cage, and me opening a drawer or opening a cabinet, and he suddenly thinks that I have something to feed him. I was replacing his toys. You know, we rotate his toys so he doesn't get bored with the same ones. I was replacing his toys a few days ago and just reached over him because he was in the way and wouldn't move. So I reached over him to unscrew the little C-clamp to change out the toys, and all of a sudden he started getting hormonal. Because I'm his preferred person. So he's all like, hey baby, and something, behavior that you don't want to encourage. So as soon as that kind of thing is triggered, you immediately give the bird space and time to cool down because you don't want a sexually frustrated bird. So that's why you haven't seen him recently. I have to be, some years are better than others. You know, he's almost 20 years old now. Sometimes he doesn't get this hormonal, other times he does. It can last up to a couple of months before he calms down, and then it can happen again in the fall. So we just, you know, got to be flexible, right? So that is life update. A little bit of Air Force. I forgot to grab something. Hold on a second. Okay, in Air Force news, this past week, a squadron commander down at Dyess Air Force Base in Texas was fired. This is not something that happens often, but my husband and I have seen it before because one of the maintenance group commanders that we worked for at Seymour actually had 2 of his squadron commanders fired in his 2-year time that he was there. So when you take command, whether it's a squadron command, a group command, or wing command, they're always a 2-year job. And as I've said before, that is both for that officer's professional development so they can continue to grow and improve, and for the unit, because just like, you know, our political leaders, most of them have a limit as to how long they can hold that position. So because you want healthy leadership for that unit, and also for that person to continue to grow. So in the maintenance group, I've shown this to you before. So the AMXS, Aircraft Maintenance Squadron, is the on-aircraft squadron. So they're the ones that are working on the flight line, launching the jets, fixing the jets, doing all the maintenance directly on the jets. These 2 squadrons, which might be combined into the MXS, depending on the number of people and the size of the wing, how many aircraft they have, CMS, component maintenance, and equipment maintenance, might be combined into just the maintenance squadron. These are off aircraft. So this is like when parts get removed from the airplane and fixed in the back shop, or support equipment like your aerospace ground equipment, your ammo, all your munitions guys, they're in the squadron too. So the squadron commander that was fired at Dyess, this is B-1 bombers. She was the AMXS, so on aircraft, on the flight line, squadron commander. She's responsible for all the, pretty much like as close to the actual mission as you can get. She's responsible for all the maintainers that are launching and catching airplanes and doing all the maintenance and supporting those aircrew that are flying the aircraft. Well, normally if you see a squadron commander fired, it's only for a couple of reasons. Dereliction of their duty and ability to lead this unit, or personal misconduct, whether that's adultery, fraternization, stealing money, that's personal misconduct. Things that's not affecting the unit unless it's affecting individuals. Or, as I said, their inability to lead their unit to do the mission directly. The little blip in the Air Force news that we saw was that it was mission related. It was not personal misconduct. But my husband and I had a little bit of a, we knew a little bit of this, of what could it possibly have gone into the decision to fire her. My husband, since he's been in the safety office, he has a safety background. He's worked in safety office down at Barksdale and while deployed. So he has the training, and I've talked about mishaps before and how they do safety investigation boards. So there's different classes of mishaps depending on if people are hurt, how many days they miss work, the monetary amount of aircraft damage. So your classes depend on both of those, one or the other. So an aircraft crash, a person dies, or over $1 million worth of aircraft damage, even if the airplane didn't crash, is a Class A mishap. If it's anything less, again, I've talked about before the different classifications. So it was only like up to $250,000 or $250,000 is a different class. Up to like $50,000 is a different class, something like that. And whether a person needs medical attention, misses up to 3 days of work. So they all align into these different classifications. And when you have a mishap, like a Class A mishap, and you need the incident investigated, you don't usually look at people at your own unit at that same base to investigate, because you need an outside opinion. So because my husband is a safety, has that little safety on his career field, he was asked if he could handle a safety investigation for a B-1 that was damaged in Norway, but it was during like a trip, and the B-1 had been assigned to DICE. And not only that, there was 2 other mishaps as well, but they weren't as significant. They weren't at the highest class. This Class A was because a laptop or a iPad was ingested by the engine. B-1 bombers are the only supersonic bombers. So if you figure a jet engine, just like in an F-15E, F-16, those kinds, has afterburner capability, sucked up this, piece of computer equipment. I don't know if it was a laptop or an iPad. Both maintenance and operators, aircrew, are usually issued or can sign out these iPads and laptops to help, instead of carrying like big binder notebooks with their tech data that tells them how to fix an aircraft. Now they're starting to do iPads and laptops. And because they're going out to the flight line, these military purchases also come with huge ruggedized cases. Okay, this is my husband's work-issued iPad that he gets just as an aircrew member, so he can check his email. He has access to some of his unclassified TOs, technical orders and stuff, checklists on here. And you can tell it's got a really good case on it. And he's an aircrew member. This isn't going out to the flight line. So, I mean, it's got a pretty good case on it. And the ones in the maintenance group would be even more ruggedized like this. More rubber, more protection, because things get dropped and such. So something bigger than this will suck down a B-1 engine. Probably because, sometimes you're working around the jet, it makes a handy shelf, that intake. If you have your toolbox right next to it, pushed next to the airplane, and you're putting something there, things happen, things get set down. It's a handy shelf. It's the intake of an engine. But something that should certainly be checked. So there's going to be a safety investigation to figure out what happened, how it can be prevented, and stuff like that. So in this one deployment from Texas to Norway, I don't know how long it was, a couple weeks I think, there was that one Class A, because anything significant gets sucked down that engine. The engines cost more than $1 million. So that's automatically a Class A. Even if the only thing that has to be done is to remove and replace that engine, just put a spare engine in there, it's still $1 million worth of damage that has to be explained and investigated. And then there were 2 more incidences that weren't as significant. all in one TDY, all in one unit. So my thinking is that's why she was fired. So that's a little bit of Air Force gossip. Again, that's my opinion. I know nothing for certain, but that's what we're guessing. Now, quickly, I do have a little bit of information. I've talked before about the SR-71. I've talked about, other airframes. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about RPAs, or you might know them as UAVs, or you might know them as drones. And then I'll have links below where you can go watch some other videos to learn more about them if you so desire. So, they were first known as UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. Then we started calling them RPAs, remote piloted aircraft. And of course, the jargon now is to call them drones because they're similar to civilian drones that you can buy, from any hobby store and fly by yourself. The idea is they're not autonomous. They're not flying on their own. They're physically directed by a human being. But there's a difference between a drone that a civilian can fly, like those quadcopters, where it's shaped like an X and there's 4 different helicopter blades on it. That's a drone. The Air Force doesn't like calling our RPAs drones because they can do a heck of a lot more than just what a civilian drone is limited to. So, the first RPA was the Predator, the MQ-1, and that has since been retired. Now we are mostly flying the MQ-9, MQ-9, which is the Reaper, and we also have the RQ-4, which is the Global Hawk. So M stands for multi-role. It can do multiple different roles as far as, let's say it like a bomber is a bomber. A fighter is a fighter. SR-71 is that surveillance and reconnaissance. So when we say multi-role, it's intel, surveillance, reconnaissance. It's multiple things it can do. Q meaning it's an RPA. There's no pilot inside. And then the number is just that series. So the Predator was first, so it's MQ-1. And the Global Hawk only has R as reconnaissance. Because I didn't do enough research as to if the Global Hawk can drop munitions. But both the Predator and the Reaper can drop bombs and fire missiles. So that's another reason why they have the M in their designator as a MQ instead of just an R for reconnaissance. So as I said, they're not autonomous. What many people don't know is that they are launched locally, where the pilot controlling them, he's sitting in a building, but it's within line of sight of where that aircraft actually is. But once it gets launched and, goes up to altitude, the control of that aircraft is transferred to one of 5 different bases here in the United States. So there's more than 70 sorties a day of these RPAs all over the globe, mostly Middle East, or wherever else, different continents, being controlled by pilots right here in the United States. The first base was Creech. That's in Nevada, pretty close to Las Vegas. Other bases have include bases in New Mexico, Florida, South Carolina, Missouri, the east side of North Dakota. There's a base in California and a base in South Dakota. So some bases control the Reapers and some bases control the Global Hawks. As I said, the Predator has been retired. They can carry GBU-38s, which are 500-pound bombs that are precision-guided munitions, or up to 4 air-to-ground Hellfire 114 missiles. They can travel up to 50,000 feet in altitude, and they're really quiet because it has a prop on it. It's not like a jet engine. So there's a couple videos I'm going to link below. The first one that is labeled Predator will give you the history of how all three of these airframes came about, with the Predator being first. It goes all the way back to 1936 or so. And then there's another short video where you can see the control room of where the Reapers are controlled. Like lots and lots of computer monitors and joysticks and things. You can see there's a third video which will show you a Reaper actually being launched, where you can see it on the flight line. And then the informational video, which is like 10 minutes long, based on the Reaper, where I got most of this information. One reason they do control it from a distance is fewer people have to be deployed. Those pilots can actually go home to their families, so they can be flying in a combat zone and go home to their families, which blows your mind. And also, so fewer people deployed, and all that decision-making process can stay stateside. So they get launched locally, and depending on what they can see, because it's live feedback to the pilot, and those people at those bases can make the decisions as to what to be done. The assassination of Soleimani back in January of 2020 was done via a Reaper. So that was a remote piloted aircraft. Someone right here in the United States was piloting it and made the strike on the decision of, U.S. leadership at that time. So go check out those videos if you want to know more. I was supposed to show you pictures, and I didn't show you pictures. Okay, so here's a Predator. I can tell the difference between a Predator and a Reaper based on which way the tail goes. So if the tail is down, it's a Predator. So tail is down. This is loaded with some GBUs. And this is also a Predator. The tail is down, but I'll give you this picture so you can see it scale next to a person. This is a Reaper, so you see the tail is up. And it also has some GBUs on it. And there's a Reaper as well, because the tail is going up next to a person, so you can get size. The propeller is in the back, so that's the air intake. And let me show you the Global Hawk. The Global Hawk is enormous. Okay, so a whole lot bigger than the Predator or the Reaper, because there's like a pickup truck tug and a person. So that is the Global Hawk. So go check out those videos if you are interested in more information. And everybody have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye, guys.